I'm David Martin Davies, and coming up on The Source, about 500,000 Texans are living with Alzheimer's disease. Another 1 million Texans serve as unpaid caregivers, managing the daily needs for loved ones. This November, Texas voters will consider Proposition 14, which would direct $3 billion over 10 years to create the Dementia Prevention and Research Institute of Texas. And later on The Source, Gina Ortiz-Jones has reached a milestone in her term as San Antonio mayor, 100 days. In that short time, there have been public fights over Project Marvel, the city's budget, and the ordinance crafting process on city council. But it's a 4-year term, so there's a lot more to come, many more challenges ahead. Mayor Jones joins us to talk about her 100 days and beyond. This is a community conversation. We want to hear from you. Call in at 833-877-8255. That's what's coming up on The Source. But first, this news.
Support for The Source podcast comes from UT Health San Antonio, South Texas' largest academic research institution, where what is discovered in its labs translates into life-changing patient care. More at uthealthsa.org.
Are you ready to amplify your impact through workplace giving? Many employers match donations, doubling or even tripling your support for TPR's local and global programming. Some employers even match gifts from retirees and spouses, so your contribution can go even further. Check if your company participates today by visiting tpr.org/workplacegiving.
Live from the John L. Santico studio in downtown San Antonio, this is The Source from Texas Public Radio. I'm David Martin Davies. On November 4th, Texans will go to the polls and cast their ballots on 17 proposed constitutional amendments. These amendments cover a wide range of issues: property tax relief, tax exemptions, judicial and bail reform, higher education funding, water infrastructure, and the creation of a state dementia research institute, among others. Proposition 14 would authorize a $3 billion fund for a Dementia Prevention and Research Institute of Texas, a DPIRT, and about 500,000 Texans are living with Alzheimer's, a disease that causes memory loss and fatal complications. We're joined by Joanne Pike, a doctor of public health and president and CEO of the Alzheimer's Association, to tell us more about Proposition 14. And Joanne Pike, welcome to The Source.
Thank you for having me.
So you are in favor, you're encouraging people to vote in favor of Prop 14?
Absolutely. We are right now in the campaign of Vote Yes on Prop 14. Dementia is a growing crisis in Texas. As you cited, right now there are about 460,000 Texans over the age of 65 who are living with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. That means also that there are over 1 million family caregivers as well that are on a day-to-day basis supporting someone who has Alzheimer's or dementia. Prop 14 gives us an opportunity to lead in the fight against dementia here in Texas, but also globally.
And about how many would you say are at risk of developing Alzheimer's or a form of dementia?
That's a great question because Texas is unique on this front. In the next 2 to 5 years, Texas will become the oldest state in the country, and age is the greatest risk factor for developing Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. So we know that Texas will carry a larger burden over the next several years for the potential of having Alzheimer's or another form of dementia.
Our phone lines are open. We want to hear from our listeners if Alzheimer's has impacted you or your family. We'd like to hear your story. If you want to encourage people to vote in favor or against Proposition 14, let us hear your say. The number is 833-877-8255, 833-TPR Talk. So why do we need a constitutional amendment in order to get these funds and deal with this issue?
Well, DPRIT as a concept, and that's the Dementia Prevention and Research Institute of Texas, was approved by the Texas legislature earlier this year. The constitutional amendment goes out to the voters to approve the allocation of $3 billion over the next 10 years to fund the DPRIT initiative. That $3 billion is actually a part of the Texas surplus. So this is not additional money that would come out of taxpayer dollars, but instead using the surplus that is already in existence for Texas.
You mean, is that the rainy day fund are you talking about, or is that something else?
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
Okay. And there's a lot of billions of dollars in the rainy day fund.
That's my understanding.
Yeah. So, if there's an argument that you're crowding out other public services that need to be addressed in Texas, that's not here. That you're saying that's not the case.
That's my understanding. And one of the things to consider is that dementia and Alzheimer's are already costing the state a significant amount of money. Today, Texas pays $4.3 billion annually for the state's Medicaid program for individuals who are living with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. So in essence, DPRIT gives us the opportunity to invest in changing that future that we know is only going to increase over time.
Let's go to a caller, 833-877-8255, and go to Jeff. And hey, Jeff, thanks for calling in. You're on the air.
Thank you. I wanted to talk about preventive measures that can either prevent or even delay the onset of these ailments, such as diet, exercise, supplementation. Are we looking at that at all, or are we just looking at I've jumped into the conversation a little later. Are we just looking at funding for study of these issues? Like
bench research type things. Jeff, thank you for that call. So how would these funds be spent, Joanne Pike? Is it dedicated to hardcore, deep research, or is it going to be used for advocating for people to help them avoid getting Alzheimer's?
Right, it's a great question, and one that has new science behind the study of prevention right now. The DPRIT funds are potentially could be used for a number of issues. It could be prevention, it could be treatments, it could be how do we provide better care in healthcare systems. It could be for rural resources throughout the state of Texas. Once DPRIT is funded, they would establish a research committee in order to choose kind of the direction of the dollars and where they go. But this does give us an opportunity to really think about how do we invest in prevention here in the state of Texas. And in fact, as I mentioned, there's new research on this, and the Alzheimer's Association this summer conducted and reported out on a research study that actually had one of those places in Houston where we looked at, does diet, physical activity, mental stimulation, and medical support, for instance, for like high blood pressure, change someone's course or risk of developing dementia? And we were able to show that maintaining a healthy diet, getting the exercise you need, having social stimulation, social and mental stimulation, and monitoring blood pressure with a large accountability structure around that can lower someone's risk. So it's that type of research that we could develop greater resources around and understand how can we expand that beyond Houston.
So $3 billion, that's what would be generated if this passes, Proposition 14. So will the money be spent down, or will it be used as an endowment? How does that work?
Right now, the way it's written is that it's $3 billion over 10 years, so $300 million per year that would be set aside for funding research activities. Since it is that those dollars already exist, that is money I'm assuming that would also grow over time depending on how that's used or saved. And there is models of how this has worked in Texas before with the Cancer Prevention Research Institute of Texas, with CPRIT, where it's going on almost 2 decades now, where they've had this similar structure and investment from the state.
All right, and so CPRIT, and there was a CPRIT scandal. There were questions about how money was being spent and how it was being allocated. There were reforms, and I imagine those will be carried over into DPRIT with the Dementia Research Institute. Well, we got some more questions coming up. We got callers calling in. We've got Byron and Debbie, and if you want to call in to talk about Alzheimer's and how it's impacted you and whether or not you feel people should vote in favor or against Proposition 14, the number is 833-877-8255, 833-TPR-TALK. Source continues right after this.
Support for this podcast of The Source comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company. They are committed to helping policyholders build strong and thriving businesses through their exceptional service. More at texasmutual.com/TexansDeliver. Texas Mutual. Texans get it.
You're listening to The Source on Texas Public Radio. I'm David Martin Davies. In the next half hour, we'll be joined by San Antonio Mayor Gina Ortiz-Jones talking about her 100 days and beyond, and she'll be taking your calls. Right now, we're talking about Proposition 14 that goes to Texas voters on Election Day, November 4th. That would create a Dementia Prevention and Research Institute of Texas. It would authorize $3 billion for that fund, and I looked it up over the break, and there are $28.5 billion in the Texas Rainy Day Fund, the Texas Economic Stabilization Fund. So it wouldn't really eat that much into that fund. And so let's go get some callers, and let's go to Byron. And Byron, you're on the air.
Hi, thank you. I'm Byron Cordes. I'm a clinical social worker here in San Antonio, and I've worked with probably hundreds of families struggling with dementia and other diseases, and my mother-in-law is also actually living with Alzheimer's. So I having looked into Proposition 14, I'm certainly for it. But in my work, and I know Dr. Pike kind of addressed this a little bit, but seeing how Texas was a leader in cancer research and care with CPRIT, and I've seen that over the last decade or so. What has Texas learned? I don't know, kind of in our response to cancer, how can we apply, any of those lessons? I think you addressed some of the negative ones, but how can we kind of replicate some of those things in the fight against Alzheimer's and dementia, other related dementias?
All right, Byron, thank you for the call. And Joanne Pike, Doctor of Public Health and President and CEO of the Alzheimer's Association.
I think one of the things that we have learned in the experience of CPRIT is how can we look at competitive granting and the best uses of those competitive grants. But the other side of that is CPRIT has also made Texas a global leader in the fight against cancer. If you are looking for a second opinion, or if you're looking for cancer treatment, it's very often that you look to a cancer center here in Texas to provide that support or care, even if you're not a resident of Texas. DPRIT gives us the opportunity to advance the science, advance care models, think about how do we integrate our caregivers within that, but also create that next generation of treatments and how to provide better health care for dementia and Alzheimer's broadly here in Texas.
Where are we in trying to beat Alzheimer's? Are we still searching and grasping in the dark, or are we really onto some solutions?
Now, we're actually at a really pivotal moment in Alzheimer's treatment and care. And the research pipeline leading to more treatments is more robust than we've ever seen it before. In the last couple of years, we have 2 new FDA-approved treatments that treat the underlying biology of Alzheimer's and actually are showing success in slowing the progression in the earliest stages of the disease, which is the critical part of any Alzheimer's journey. Being able to slow the progression when someone is in the early stages gives them more time with family. It gives them more time to think about what their care journey needs to look like into the future. Having these two FDA-approved treatments is just the beginning, though. We know they're not cures. We know we need more targets. We need more shots on goal. And having DPRIT be a center point for that opportunity here in the U.S. and having Texas lead is an incredible opportunity to really get any new treatments into the hands of people who could benefit, but also seeing the opportunities that can be created here in Texas.
So early detection is critical, and I think by the time you start noticing that you are having symptoms of Alzheimer's, it's late in the game, isn't it?
Not necessarily. I mean,
but earlier would be better. I mean, can't we be doing testing? Shouldn't we have some form of testing that would be, I can tell if my memory is failing through some sort of test?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're seeing progress on that diagnostic front as well. Historically, the gold standard of diagnosis has always been a PET scan. But now we're seeing 95% effectiveness in diagnosing with blood tests. And that really equalizes the playing field. And not only that, it makes it so much easier for people who are not in an urban area with a large treatment facility to access accurate diagnosis earlier in the stages of their potential journey with dementia or Alzheimer's. The fact is, though, we need to make sure people are having those conversations with their primary care physicians earlier in the process. DPRIT gives us the opportunity to also train those primary care physicians who may have lacked specialized training to ask the right questions when someone is in front of them. And also, on the other side, gives us an opportunity to reach out to people and talk about how can they access providers who have that knowledge.
So do I just ask my doctor, my GP, I want a blood test for Alzheimer's?
Well, right now it's not recommended that you just get a blood test without seeing some cognitive changes. But if you are seeing some cognitive changes, if you're feeling like your memory or problem solving is a little bit different than what you have seen before, that is absolutely an opportunity for you to talk to your provider about accessing a clinical assessment and also a blood test potentially.
Let's go to Debbie on the phones. Debbie, thanks for holding on. You're on the air.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. I just had a comment. I had both my maternal and paternal grandmothers suffered from Alzheimer's, and I now have a maternal aunt that also has Alzheimer's. Looking back in our history, it's very prevalent in my family, women. So the Biggs Institute through UT Health received and started a lot of good research, and I went ahead and volunteered, and I joined a study. In fact, yesterday was my third-year visit. It's a 4-year study that I'm in, and for all 3 years so far, I've had the same doctor working with me, the same technicians with me, and it is remarkable what they are doing there at the Big Center for Alzheimer's research. And I may never know if, I won't ever really be told if I have it or, but to me it was important enough that they would use my information and perhaps through research come up with a cure for this or very good preventative measures. So I want to say that we do need more research, and we do need the Amendment 14 to pass. It's very, very important.
Well, Debbie, thank you for the call. So, Joanne, how would DPRIT coordinate with like the UT Systems Glenn Biggs Institute News Center for Brain Health in San Antonio?
Yeah, it's a great reminder of the importance of the impact DPRIT will have on our existing research infrastructure. UT Health San Antonio, along with UT San Antonio and several other institutions in South Texas, stand to benefit from having increased research available to them. We know that several of those facilities already receive large federal grants. Having Texas-specific funding will give them an opportunity to expand the research that they're already doing and maybe expand into new areas. But I think one of the things that struck me about Debbie's call is the description she gave about her own healthcare experience, having the same providers, having knowledgeable clinicians that she's able to interact with. And it's that kind of experience and specialized training that we really need to expand beyond just those large research institutions into a broader healthcare system and healthcare landscape throughout Texas. But the existing research infrastructure stands to benefit because they are already large institutions that have great experience.
Let's go to Tammy on the phones. And Tammy, you're on the air.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to share my mom's journey with Alzheimer's. It was a very long 14 years, and our family experienced all the stages of this cruel disease. And family caregiving had become an essential part of our daily care. I do know firsthand the physical, emotional, and financial burden this disease has not only have on your loved ones, but the entire family. And I wanted to comment that, yes, I'm voting for Prop 14, and I wanted to ask Dr. Pike, can you share why now is the right time for Texas to invest in dementia research, please?
Dr. Pike.
It's a great question. I mentioned at the start just the demographics of Texas. In the next 2 to 5 years, Texas will become the oldest state in the country. It's a burden because of age that we know that Texas is going to carry a large population, probably one of the biggest populations with Alzheimer's or another form of dementia. Having Prop 14 at this moment really gives us the opportunity to make an investment in changing that trajectory into the future. But not only that, developing the leadership and the research muscle here in the state of Texas and all of the investment that potentially comes with that over the next 10 years.
And so when you say Texas is getting older, you mean the population demographic? We're getting...
Correct.
Okay. But isn't Alzheimer's, are we seeing it hitting people younger now?
With more in focus on early detection and early diagnosis, we are seeing more individuals being diagnosed at a younger age. And I think that's part of that journey of having treatments available. People know that they're able to access it earlier in the course. So maybe there's less stigma for them to talk with their provider about the changes they are seeing because there is a little bit more hope now than there was historically. We are hearing anecdotally that age change, but I think it's potentially driven by where we are in this pivotal moment in the fight against Alzheimer's and dementia.
Okay, let's go to Paul and get Paul on the air. Hey, Paul, thanks for calling in. You're on the air.
Yes, thank you. My wife has Alzheimer's. She's one of 12 children, and she had 5 sisters who all have come down with Alzheimer's one by one. My wife's the youngest, and so I knew it was coming. I mean, it was just a real good chance. Our doctor said, no. It's, an individual thing. Well, she came down with it, so we had her tested, and they said, well, you need to see a neurologist. Took us a year to get in to see a neurologist. And they say, well, you waited too long to come see us. You should have come a year ago.
Oh.
And so, so I said, okay, so what's ahead here? He says, well, there's no cure, and so there's not much we can do for you. And I thought about that a whole bunch, and I said, well, at least, you have some other medications that can help. And I'd already done research on it, and I said, what about this, and this? Well, yeah, we could do that, some of those. And so she got put on some of the medications that I had suggested. But, you know, you're out there all alone.
Wow.
Nobody's trying to help you. You know, it's a horrible illness, and my wife's losing the ability to communicate. And that's real hard. You know,
Paul, thank you, Paul. We're out of time here, but I think your call is very important, and it tells us so much. We're really out of time here, Joanne Pike. We want to, we just heard in that story, tremendous need. We do need to come together, and there is that Proposition 14. So, any last words?
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think Paul's experience, I'm so sorry to hear that, is all too often what we see in what the treatment of Alzheimer's looks like right now. Proposition 14 gives us an opportunity to change that. Training physicians, bringing more physicians to Texas, creating that attractive recruitment strategy so that we don't have these year-long waits to get in to see a neurologist. But for people who are interested in learning more about...
Yeah, well, I'm totally out of time here, but Proposition 14, November 4th, that's The Source from Texas Public Radio. Thanks for listening.
This has been The Source on Texas Public Radio. The Source is hosted by David Martin Davies. Tim Gutierrez is the show's producer. Additional production support from Steve Short, Ruben Garcia, Yvette Benavides, and Dan Katz, Vice President of News. The Source is made possible with support from the Gladys and Ralph Lazarus Foundation.